Back on Get Up, and let's see how Seth does here. Uncle Seth says the Raptors are going to win tomorrow night, which raises the question, Seth Greenberg, which was the last team to win 3 road games in an NBA Final Series?
Hembo, you're a little trickier when you're in Bristol. You're a lot easier when you're sitting behind the desk. I'm going to go way outside the box. I'm going to say San Antonio in that huge game against the Miami Heat, and I am probably wrong, and you are very happy, and you're not even on air, which is
correct.
even bebetter. You can't celebrate.
The 2001 Lakers beat the Sixers in Philly in games 3, 4.
I'm done with Hembo. I'm done with it.
Laura. All right, let's go to the Kevin Durant injury here. And certainly it leads to more questions than it does answers as far as what's going to happen for Durant and so many other teams around the league this offseason. Durant can opt in for another year with the Warriors, but will much more likely opt out, as Woj told us this morning live, and become a free agent. And that has numerous implications for the Warriors and all across the league. And I want to bring Bobby Marks back into this conversation. Our front office insider was terrific with us yesterday with great insight into all of this, Bobby. And you laid out yesterday Durant's options, which will most likely see him becoming a free agent despite the injury. So what are the financial implications for Golden State if they decide to sign Durant and Klay Thompson, both of them, for as much as they can?
Well, Greeny, they're huge. And remember, this is the year that Golden State enters the repeater tax. They'll be in the luxury tax 4 to 5 seasons. And we could see payroll and luxury tax at $380 million. That would certainly be a league record. Now, if Durant goes elsewhere, that number drops to $160 million. So it's a $220 million difference just to bring Durant back on that max contract.
To make it clear, you're talking about $220 million difference to bring him back, understanding that he would be a year at least where he's not playing for them at all. How consequential is that? If you look at NBA teams and decisions they've made, just how consequential is that number?
Well, I think it's consequential if you're in maybe one of these smaller market, like maybe Minnesota or Milwaukee. But remember, this is an organization that is moving into a brand new arena in San Francisco next year, and the cost of ticket sales and revenue from advertising will certainly offset what Golden State will pay in payroll. But I don't know if this could have been done if this team was still in Oakland, but with this new arena, it certainly helps offset some of this cost here.
You know, and I don't know that this is exactly your area of expertise, but I think this is what a lot of fans wonder, and myself included. This is a group, an ownership group, that bought this franchise for $450 million 9 years ago. It's got to conservatively be worth $4 billion now, something like that. So how significant is it if you pay another $100 million here, another $200 million there, when you've made 100 times on your money already?
Well, I've worked for a billionaire in Mikhail Prokhorov in Brooklyn, and we paid a $100 million luxury tax in 2013-14, and I don't care how much money you are worth, $1 billion or $2 billion, it is not a good feeling on August 1st when you've got to wire the NBA $220 million. So, yes, there will be considerable savings from this arena, but that's still $200 million that's going to come out of Joe Lacob and his partner's money here.
Okay, and so then let's just spin it then forward here, because we understand KD has a lot of options right now, and Klay and all the rest of that. It continues to be your position that KD will have teams out there willing to offer him the max that they can, regardless of the injury here, yes?
Yes, it is, and it's, $164 million, and, as I said yesterday, we kind of did a straw poll, and the answer was unanimous here as far as teams were willing to go out and sign him, just because he is a unique talent. The understanding is that he will likely be out the whole year. But yes, there will be teams lined up if Kevin Durant does become a free agent.
So just quickly, that would suggest that if the Warriors want to bring him back, they will not be able to do so at less than the max, right? At less than all those dollars that he's eligible to get.
If I'm Golden State, I'm not taking a conservative approach come free agency, and I think the 5 years, $221 million, knowing that Durant will be out next year, I think that is something they should do based on how much this player has saved this organization in the last couple of years here. He's taken a haircut in his last 2 contracts.
All right, it's interesting stuff. Bobby, so well done. Thank you very much for the perspective. Laura, over to you.
Yes, sitting over here with Seth Greenberg and Marcus Spears. And look, we're hearing millions, even billions thrown around and talking about KD. And a lot of people do believe that he will go on and be a free agent. You just heard what Bobby Marks said there about the fact that teams still very interested, even if he's not playing next year. When you think about KD, first of all, is there any option in your head that he does stay with Golden State?
I think there is an option he stays with Golden State because depending on how they handled this situation and the information, they handled it coming to this point. But they're talking about this money. This is monopoly money to the NBA. If you think about what the Golden State Warriors were bought for, what they're worth right now, moving into a new arena, I know we can't put our arms around those type of numbers, but to the people that are making those decisions, he's a generational player. And his body type and his game, his skill set, he's going to come back from this injury. There's no doubt in my mind. And when he comes back, you will not. What will it cost Golden State to get the next Kevin Durant? You know what? That might be a bargain.
Good point.
I just, when I look at this entire situation, especially when you talk about the impact on free agency, you have to, this is the hard part of trying to go into KD's mind. Like, what is he thinking? He has this coupled with that decision to make in free agency. Here's my thing. Seth, you say there's no one to blame, and some people may agree. What is the relationship going to be like going forward? That's my big question when you talk about KD and dealing with Golden State and all of these things that transpired. So as we move forward, as we look forward to seeing what the prognosis is for KD as far as the injury, what decision he'll make about coming back to Golden State in free agency, and then too, let's not forget this. KD can afford to tear his Achilles. A lot of guys can't do that, right? Bobby just talked about how much money he's made over this time. We know how great he's been. A lot of players don't have that opportunity to come back from an injury like this and have those type of gains.
He's going to get the max from someone.
No question.
And, talk about the blame game. In the end, KD decided to play.
Yeah.
All right? And in the end, it was his choice to go out and play. So, he's a free thinker. If he thought there was a chance he was going to get hurt, he wasn't going to go out and play.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. So he's got to take some responsibility.
Coach, if you my doctor,
too.
I need you to protect me from myself.
Well,
because you know how athletes are.
I'm sure he should have had a second. If he didn't have a second opinion, shame on him.
Well, who knows exactly what went on there, and we're still waiting on those MRI results. Of course, he had that MRI in New York, we heard yesterday. Let's get back to
New York, and the wait is for the results of the MRI. We know it's an Achilles injury. The question is, how bad is it? The Warriors say they expect to have some news today, and when they have it, we'll have it, and so too will you. In the meantime, from football to golf, the sports world continues to react.
It was sad. As athletes, we've all been there to that spot when you just know it, that something just went and can't move, can't do much of anything, and you can see it on his face, how solemn his face went. I mean, he knows it. When things pop, you just know.
For anyone to question, his toughness or his willingness to be a good teammate, I'm sure many people were probably speculating, is he just trying to get to free agency because he has a big payday going? No, this guy had a rough injury, decided to come back and put his body on the line in a must-win game.
So we are expecting the results of the MRI at some point today. Woj is here now. What are you hearing in terms of what we should expect the severity of this injury is for KD?
The expectation is that this will be a torn Achilles tendon. The MRI will likely confirm that, and it'll confirm the severity of the injury, what kind of rehab Kevin Durant will be facing over the next several months, year.
Woj, when this injury goes down in the finals, everyone's sitting there thinking, oh no, because of the impact and the ripple effect this could have across the league. And Durant has to make a decision in his own right. He can opt in with the Warriors this summer, or he can become a free agent. How might this injury impact that decision?
It's still likely he will opt out of that contract, because if he wants to return to the Warriors, he can, by opting in, it's a $31.5 million salary next year. By opting out and doing another short deal, hypothetically, with the Warriors, that new deal starts at $38 million. But I think there's a sense around the league that he may still try to go get a long-term deal. I think that's especially important for a player with an Achilles injury whose return to the NBA may not be until he's 32 years old if he misses all of next year. And to go out into the marketplace, whether it's New York, whether it's the Clippers, whether it's staying in Golden State, and figuring that a team will still bank on the possibility that Durant will still return at a high level, but essentially he'd be a $38 million plus redshirt player next season for whichever team he signs with.
I have a hard time wrapping my head around that situation a little bit. This is a guy, though, who has averaged for his career 70 games a season. And as Woj just said, he's 30 right now. He'll turn 31 in September. If he misses all of next season, Kevin Durant won't be back on the court again until he's 32.
He's been the answer. He hurt his right leg. Something happened.
Kevin Durant's hurt.
He's limping.
Trying to walk it off. Kevin Durant's going right to the locker room.
Limping badly.
If Kevin is out, we're going to have to find a way.
You lose your best player, it's deflating.
We got to have his back.
We desperately need him if we want to win a championship.
As we wait for the MRI results on Kevin Durant, I'm so glad that you're here, Stefania Beller, injury analyst, because she's the one that can sort of help us understand the waiting game and what's going to go into this injury for Kevin Durant. So let's just start here. What's the worst case scenario here?
Well, we have already heard that the Warriors fear a torn Achilles. So if we go down that path of if he has a torn Achilles that requires surgery, your worst fear is that a player doesn't return to his pre-injury level of form. And with an Achilles, that's explosiveness, that's leaping ability, especially for a basketball player. So you certainly hope that that's not the case, but that would be your worst case scenario.
The Warriors have said it is an Achilles injury, and there are certain ways that we can call it. What is the difference between an Achilles rupture and an Achilles tear?
Well, when you hear rupture right away, that comes to mind like it's the integrity of that connection of the Achilles to the heel is gone. And a tear, it really comes down to the percentage. You know, that's what the imaging is for. They'll see exactly where the injury is. That makes a difference. You know, is it at the attachment to the heel, which is a little bit more serious of an injury, a little bit more complicated to repair? Is it up higher in the tendon, which has potentially a better prognosis? So there's a lot of those nuances that come out of the imaging. But a tear, if it's a significant loss of function, usually means surgery, especially for an athlete.
So what's the best case scenario that can come out of this MRI?
That they see something clean, you know, that's easy to repair if the repair is required, and that, you know, they proceed accordingly. I mean, the rehab process is long for this. We've already heard people talking about a red shirt for a year. You know, 9 months is about the soonest that you would expect to see a basketball player return from this. 9 months to a year, but think of all the factors that matter. I mentioned the location of the injury, the type of surgery. There are different types of procedures for this. How much scar tissue is involved? You worry about an infection early on. There's a higher risk because the skin is thin around the Achilles. You know, these are all things that factor into it, which is why a blanket timetable is so hard to issue.
It's hard not to compare injuries in this sort of situation because an ACL tear is going to keep you out about the same amount of time. Tommy John keeps you out for about a season as well. What makes the Achilles so hard to rehab, so hard to come back from?
Well, when you're talking about a hoops player, it's the demand on the tendon. You know, you saw that plant and push off where Kevin Durant appeared to suffer the injury. That's common. That's how Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles, because there's so much energy demand, tension placed on the Achilles in that position. So think of all the quick plant and change of direction that happens in hoops, the jumping, the leaping, the running up and down the court. It's tough to get all that back, and there's a long time where they're deconditioned because they're not able to rehab while they're protecting the repair.
Real quick, how significant is the worry of injury when he does return?
It's not a worry of re-tear of the rupture so much as the worry about injury to other things. It's what we saw with Boogie Cousins. You know, a secondary injury.
Played 32 games and hurt his quad.
Yeah.
Kobe came back from his Achilles injury and then broke his kneecap.
Right, it does happen.
It does
the age of the athlete, the conditioning, all of that stuff factors.
Kevin Durant currently is 30. Results of his MRI are expected today. By the way, Katie's mom, Wanda Durant, is going to be on Good Morning America at 8:15 Eastern this morning. As for the series, it continues, and Game 6 is Thursday night. NBA Countdown is going to get you started 8:30 Eastern on ABC. Then that's followed by the game at 9.